Alright, so we were able to confirm that the endpoints work for retrieving all the rewards and retrieving points associated to the user that's logged in. But now I want to add one more thing, and that's the ability to send an email from our application. So to do that, I'm going to need a dependency. I'm going to go into the pom.xml, and right at the bottom, and I have to scroll down a bit, there's a lot of dependencies. And right below this Kafka dependency, I'm going to add one more dependency, and that's going to be the Springboot starter mail. So I'm going to let Maven do its thing, load all of that, and then when it's done, I'll be back for it. Alright, so I got the Springboot starter mail, and now I need to do some initial setup first. I will be using my Gmail, and it will require some setup since with Gmail, it requires an app password. Google doesn't want us to directly place our password into our application, so they have an app password which can generate passwords for apps and inject that instead of your actual password. So let's handle the creation of that first. So how exactly do you generate an app password? Well, you go to myaccount.google.com, you go into the search bar, and you search for app passwords. You should be brought to this screen of app passwords where you can place a name for the app password in this input and press the create button. And when you press create, it should generate a password, and you're going to have to copy that password and we'll utilize it in the application. But this is how the screen will look like. As you can see, I have two here. I have one named email and one named Springboot email sender. And when I created them, they provided me a password, and that's the password I'll utilize instead of my actual password. I'm using an app password instead. So go ahead, go to your Google account, make sure you go to app passwords, utilize the search bar. I believe to actually see app passwords, you may have to have multi-factor authentication enabled, but you can double check on that. But if you don't see it, maybe try enabling it, and then it may appear after that, and then go ahead and generate that new app password by placing a name, pressing create, and copying that password. Now I'm back in application, and once you have your password, we can head over to application.properties because we're going to have to define some properties to make sure that our email is connected properly so that we can send emails. Now, I just want to say up front that we do not have to use Gmail. We can use something like AWS SES, which is an email service that AWS provides, and we could use pretty much the similar properties that we're going to define in this application to connect something like AWS SES. But in my case, I am using Gmail. I'm going to start off with the properties. The first one is going to be spring.mail.host, and that's going to be equal to smtp.gmail.com. smtp.gmail.com is just the outgoing SMTP server. SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. So all my folks trying to get their networking certification, that's something that you should know. But it utilizes port 465 for SSL and 587 for TLS. But we'll be using TLS since that's the most recent and up-to-date protocol. TLS just simply means transport layer security. It encrypts the data as it sends the data to the server, the Gmail server, right? So that's important to make sure that our data is not in plain text as it's being sent to the host. So to do that, I'm going to do spring.mail.port. It's going to be equal to 587 because, like I said, TLS uses 587, SSL uses 465, and TLS will encrypt the data as it's being sent over. Now, for the username, we're going to have to provide the email, right? So it's going to be spring.mail.username, and it's going to be equal to, I'm just going to use a buffer email, but twg@gmail.com. This is not my actual Gmail, it's just a placeholder, just to demonstrate. And then spring.mail.password, and it's going to have to be your password that was provided through the app password. So it should be in the format of something like XXX, 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 and another XXX. So it's like four columns of 4 characters, right? So in total, it should be about 16 characters, and that's how your password should look like. That's how the app password should look like, and you should place it here, right? But this will be a placeholder for me as well. I'll put the real one when I'm done demonstrating. So spring.mail.properties.mail.port smtp.auth. We're going to set that equal to true. And then what we also going to have to enable is using TLS. So we're going to do spring.mail.properties.mail.smtp.start TLS.enable and make that equal to true. So this is really all the properties you're going to need to enable sending emails using your Gmail, right? You're going to need the host, you're going to need the port, you're going to need your username, which is your actual Gmail that you want to send a message from, the password, which is going to be @password. Make sure you have that generated. You got to enable auth, set that equal to true, enable TLS, make that equal to true, and you should be good to go. And like I said, you don't have to utilize Gmail. You could utilize SES. You just have to get the host and define the other properties associated to SES, and then you should be good to go on that end. All right, so now that we established the connection by providing these properties, we can go ahead and create a model for how an email should look like. So I'm going to go ahead and create a DTO by going into models and going to DTO, and I'm going to create a new DTO, and I'm going to call it email. So I'm just going to call it email DTO. It's going to be a data class. And all I need is 3 properties. I'm going to do val 2, make that a string, val subject, make that a string, and val text, also make that a string. You're going to have the email of who you're sending it to, the subject on what this email is about, and the text of what's the actual message is going to be. And we already know who it's from because you already provided the from in the application.properties. It's going to be that username or that email that you provided. Next, we're going to have to create a mail sender service. This is going to be the service that's going to allow us to send mail. So once we inject the mail sender service within other services, we'll be able to send mail from that service by using the method that we're going to create in the mail sender service. So let me go ahead into service and create a new class called mail sender service, a Kotlin class called mail sender service. And then above here, I'm going to use the @service annotation. And then within here, I'm going to inject a dependency called email sender. And then in the constructor, what I'm going to do is I'm going to inject a dependency called email in private file, email sender, and it's going to be an instance of Java mail sender. And this is coming from the dependency that we retrieved initially. So as you can see, it's coming from springframework.mail.javamail.java mail sender. So now what we can do is I'm going to create the initial function of send mail, and what it's going to accept is an email of type email DTO. And then we can define a message here, right? It's going to be message, and it's going to be equal to create simple message, and it's going to take in email. And honestly, just to make this more clear, email message. All right. And then I'm going to use email sender dot send message. And you're probably wondering, what the heck is create simple message? Well, we're going to have to create it now. So we're going to need some helper functions to help structure the email in a structure that the email sender understands. We're going to need to create a MIME message, which stands for multi-purpose internet mail extension, MIME. So it's going to be MIME, right? You guys probably seen that before. And it utilizes headers and separators that tells a user agent how to recreate the message. User agent in this case will be a mail user agent, also called an email client. A mail client application that grants user access to a mail server in order to create, send, and receive email messages. We already established those properties in the beginning, right, in the application.properties. So I'm going to go ahead and create a private function called create simple message, and is going to take in the email message of type email DTO, and it's going to be a meme message. And open that up, and now we have to make sure that we structure it in a way that the email sender understands, right? It's going to have headers and separators that tell user agent how to recreate the message. So it's going to be message, and we're going to structure it as a or instance of a meme message, and it's going to be equal to email sender dot create meme message. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Most likely not. Then I'm going to have a helper, and it's going to be equal to a meme message helper, and it's going to accept the message. And I'm going to import that from JavaMail. And with this helper, we can then construct the structure of the email. Right? So I can do helper dot set to email message dot to helper dot set subject, and do email message dot subject, and I can do helper dot set text, and that'll be equal to the actual message of the email, which is going to be email message dot text, and then I can actually return the message. So now I'm actually able to send mail. But one more thing I need to do is I'm going to wrap this in a try and catch, because just because we're able to construct it doesn't mean that it's actually going to send successfully, right? If it fail, there are other things that can occur, like maybe that email that you're trying to send to doesn't exist. Things like that can occur. So making sure to capture exceptions is important. So I'm going to just capture generically all exceptions. And then from within this catch, I can do throw mail sender exception. And I think actually it's mail send exception. All right, perfect. And then pass failed to send email, and pass in the actual exception. So, and then I can also put a print here, failed to send email, and I just inject the actual exception message. Like I said, you can also utilize a logger, or you should utilize a logger here. You guys know how to get the dependency and utilize loggers now, so you can add that in as a separate side task. So a thing to note, like I said before, things can occur, right? The mail sender will attempt to send using your Gmail, but if the email doesn't exist, you will receive an email to inform you that it wasn't able to send, right? You will receive a mail delivery subsystem informing that the email wasn't sent because the email doesn't exist. So if you ever see a mail delivery subsystem in your email, just think about your application that's using your email and trying to send emails. Maybe it tried to send an email that just doesn't exist. Now, one way to counteract that is by using confirmation emails. When a user signs up, you can send a link to their email to make sure that they confirm the sign up. And if they're able to confirm, that just means that the email exists. So that lessens the risk of exceptions that can occur because the email doesn't exist, right? As you saw many times throughout this course, you can see that I utilize fake emails. So obviously some of these send emails won't work because those emails doesn't exist, or I'm probably using somebody else's email by accident. But in a real life application, you probably want to utilize confirmation emails to help reduce the amount of exceptions that can occur when it comes to fake emails. So now it is time to utilize this mail sender service, and I can do that exactly as I said I will use it. I can go into the user service, and when a user signs up, I want to send a email saying thank you for signing up, welcome to the team. So I'm gonna put that right in here. I'm gonna put that right in this sign up user. I'm gonna go ahead and inject the dependency of mail sender service, And honestly, I can just make all of these private, to be honest with you. Sometimes I generally forget, but it's good convention to make it private. You don't want it to be accessible from anywhere else. So then down here, once I can confirm that the user was saved properly, I can go ahead and send an email by using the mail sender service. And I can do the send mail. And then within send mail, I'm going to create a new instance of email DTO. And I'm going to import that. And then from within here, I can do two. It's going to be equal to the user.email. And then I can do subject. It's going to be equal to welcome to the app. And then the text will just be welcome to the team. Go ahead and log in to get started. All right, and you can make it a lot more nicer. There are ways that you can generate message templates and make it nice by putting images and stuff, but this is just a very bare bones basic email sender, right? You could utilize attachments. There's a lot more things you can do, but just want to make it very simple, and you have the ability to connect using the properties that I showed you, and then from there you can just increase the difficulty on how you want to send mail. But this is a very basic way on how you can send it. I don't even have to use a try and catch, because whenever it throws an exception, it'll be caught by the global exception handler. You could go ahead in the global exception handler and create a new exception handler for mail send exceptions. That'll be another project for you. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Now I can go ahead and try to create a new account, and I'll show you guys that the email actually went through. So let me go ahead and run this, and I'll send a email to myself essentially, or sign up, and then it will send an email to myself, and I'll show a screenshot of that email. All right, so just as proof that I'm not lying and just showing you guys BS, here is a screenshot of my email, right? So I added my actual email, I added my app password associated to that email, and I signed up with my other email, and I got this in my mailbox. So I can see welcome to the app, and I noticed that I messed up on the welcome to the team. Go ahead, and it's supposed to be and right here, not a, login to get started, but it works. Now, one thing that I realized that you can do, and that you should do, is you shouldn't just send the email and have it as a blocking task. You could send the email in the background, right? Or maybe you can even create another topic for sending emails. So you got to realize that there's a lot of signups going on, and you have a blocking task of sending an email that could slow down your application, and that could be bad for your application. So having this being sent in the background, or having a separate topic to handle emails, is another thing that can be great in a distributed sense. So that can be another addition to your application to help speed it up. But if it's just for local purposes, or if it's just for a small application, then hey, why not? But just another thing for you guys to think about. So at least you now know how to send a very basic email. But I guess another thing you can start thinking about is background tasks, and how to utilize templates to make your emails look nicer. So hopefully that was helpful.